In Russian. Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad to come to this event. I'm very pleased to introduce Bartosz Rydliński, who is no stranger to Washington, D.C. Well, he comes to us as an assistant professor at Cardinal Stefan Wyszynski University in Warsaw. He's a member of the Amicus Europae Foundation Council, established by former Polish President Aleksander Kwasniewski, also a friend of the CERES. And Bartosz Rydliński is also a former fellow, Next Generation Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. So as I mentioned, he's been here. He's also been with us in CERES in 2014 as a visiting scholar. And he's here again, so we're very glad to welcome him. This is part of CERES' ongoing coverage of the terrible events in Ukraine, which you can see many of our events on our YouTube channel if you go to CERES Georgetown. And we're particularly pleased to be able to offer a perspective from Poland and from the point of view of European security. So I'm Michael David Fox. I'm the director of CERES, and we're going to hear a presentation from Dr. Rydliński, and then I will moderate a discussion.
So, Dr. David Fox, Madam Council, Professor Sadowska, Dr. Smith, Dr. Stein, Dr. Long, dear students, we Europeans, we like the titles, so, this is so my name is Bartosz Rydliński. Thank you very much for having me. I would like to mention that the last time I was at CERES, the annexation of Crimea happened. So when I arrived right now, next time keep me at CERES, then nothing would happen to Ukraine. So I would like to present a few thoughts on Poland and the EU response to Russian aggression in Ukraine, and for that I would like to use a time machine. I would like to have a lot of movie references. Namely, I will go back to the past with you and then to the present times to show you what changed for the last couple of years. So let's start with the first part of Back to the Future, namely let's go back to April 2009. Barack Obama in Prague basically offered also Russia the nuclear-free world, right? A lot of people thought that this is kind of utopian idea of Barack Obama, but the message from the United States was clear. Like, we should think about nuclear-free world because humanity deserves it. Then in 2010, 5 minutes right from here, and the famous burger place, which Dr. Long said is already closed. At the race in Arlington, there was like this reset over burgers, right, with Dmitry Medvedev. This is where Barack Obama proposed, listen, we should establish, better relations, closer economic ties, and it will fruit the common relationship, not only between the United States and Russia, but between the US and Russia. I would like to also underline the similar atmosphere reset took place in Poland. So Donald Tusk, for instance, in 2008, a few months after he won the election, went to see that time President Putin before he switched the position with Medvedev, and he was trying to reestablish working relationship. After this visit, Moscow press called Donald Tusk our man in Warsaw. Then Donald Tusk also said that Putin is our man, like our man in Moscow, right? So this is so you would see that there was a kind of this idea of reestablishing good relations, which was always tense, especially after Orange Revolution of 2004-2005. Just to give you another example how this relation went, Radosław Sikorski and Minister Westerwelle re-established so-called Königsberg Triangle. So there was basically idea of bringing Russia together with Poland and Germany to create better relationship on security. This is very important, right? So you see those pictures of smart gentlemen, shaking hands. So Lavrov is, of course, also very happy on the picture. It was this picture was taken in 2013, but in 2011 this triangle was established. But it was the end of the illusion for both for Poland and for the United States, namely annexation of Crimea. Annexation of Crimea was for many people, both in DC but also in Warsaw, a wake. But let's go back to the past one more time. So part number 2 of this movie, let's go back to 2008, namely Georgia, war in Georgia, and already that time, another Polish politician, President Lech Kaczyński, flew to Tbilisi in the moment of the conflict with 3 other head of states, with Viktor Yushchenko, president of Ukraine, with Valdas Adamkus, president of Lithuania, and Tomas Ilves, president of Estonia. He brought them to show solidarity to Mikhail Saakashvili, but also he said very important words, which are the following. He said, we are also aware that today is Georgia, tomorrow is Ukraine, the day after tomorrow, the Baltic states, and then maybe my country, Poland. So we see that when he said this in Tbilisi in August 2008, a lot of people said like, yeah, this is not true. And right now we can see that Lech Kaczyński maybe was right. On Ukraine, definitely he was. So there's a question if the European political elites like found war in Georgia as an end of the illusion. I think not. Because 3 years after war in Georgia, the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline was open. And we can see clearly funny picture of Angela Merkel, Marco Rutte, and Dmitry Medvedev, right? So when you see the Dutch Prime Minister, the German Chancellor, smile on that picture, 3 years after war in Ukraine, in Georgia, this picture shows a lot. But Nord Stream 1 was not enough. So they decided, let's build the Nord Stream 2, right? And so, of course, there was a lot of protests, especially from countries from the region, from Poland and the Baltic states. You can see that basically this gas pipeline is avoiding those countries, but it's also avoiding Belarus, it's also avoiding Ukraine, which is also important. So there was a lot of protests. Of course, the process took time, but in 2018, Germany said, okay, so let's do that, right? Let's do the Nord Stream 2. And the next graph is very shocking, because when you see how many European countries sold weapons to Russians during period 2015 to 2020, this is shocking. I would like to also let you know that it was forbidden by the European Union to make such deals. So very often, of course, there is a lot of questions about the rule of law in Hungary, Poland, and so on. But I'm wondering if it is rule of law. Selling weapons, which are killing civilians in Ukraine by not only German and French companies, but also companies from the region. Now, for example, like Czech Republic. So let's talk about the Polish response to Russian aggression in Ukraine. And there's like 3 layers. First would be the social support. And I would like to just to let you know that Poland accepts more than 2.5 million of Ukrainian refugees. So could you imagine, this is what Professor Sadowska very often is referring, that this is like, if you could imagine, the United States would accept 19 million Canadians arriving to the US, right? So because comparing to the size of the country, right, and the population. So this is basically the number we accept. And those pictures are well known, right? The Polish border guard helping, carrying the kid with the kitty, right, with mom. There was the grassroots movement to help Ukrainian refugees, right? So this is not state plan. This is the from the bottom to the top, grassroots, right? So it's you would find nursing, kindergartens, housing, helping Ukrainian refugees on the border already in Warsaw. This is the train station. And for that particular event, we use this very symbolic graph made by Aleksander Kwasniewski. What is the reason? This is like the Ukrainian house on the Polish field, because of the Polish weak welfare state, we accept or we welcome Ukrainians at their houses. So, for example, I'm going to give you my dear friend, Jan Gebert example. There is a beautiful piece in CNN how my good Polish Jewish friend, Jan Gebert, give the keys to his apartment to unknown people from Ukraine. And why? Because he said, because of that, his family survived Holocaust. So this is also the symbolical gesture, right? To helping people in need, people who are looking for shelter. I also checked the Polish framework or the bill, how we are helping. So there is it was entry to Poland even without the valid ID, possibility to enter with pets. This is important because the EU very often forbids to enter with pets from the different European reasons, right? But we said, okay, you can bring your dog, pet, name it, right? Take it with you, you're welcome. Access to public, free of charge, healthcare, access to public free school and university education, access to program 500 plus. So this is like the money child benefit. There is no problem to have work permit, and there is a legal residence in Poland up to 18 months. But besides that, we also sent a lot of aid. So this is picture taken during weekend. We sent 150 wagons of aid to Kharkiv and to Zaporozhye. And I would like to also let you know, because I was talking about pets, so I'm a big fan of zoo in Poznań, because zoo in Poznań is very good in helping big cats in need. So they rescue a lot of tigers, from Ukraine. So let's talk about the political support, because it's also very important. So you remember that the discussed plan of invasion was February 16. So this is when people said that this is what's going to happen. And the same day, Polish parliamentarians went to Verkhovna Rada. Ryszard Terlecki, deputy speaker of the Sejm, with other parliamentarians from other political parties, went to show the support in Kiev. Day before the aggression, President of Poland and President of Lithuania went to see President Zelensky. The Polish ambassador, Bartosz M, never left Kiev. He stayed there during bombing. On March 11th, there was a National Assembly, so this happened very rarely when Sejm and Senate have the joint session for welcoming through, of course, Zoom, President Zelensky. March 16, Prime Minister of Poland, Czech Republic, Slovenia, and the Deputy Prime Minister and the factual leader of the Polish state, Jarosław Kaczyński, went to see Volodymyr Zelensky. So when you saw the pictures of Boris Johnson, so yeah, so he was like a little bit late. We've been there first. We used all the diplomatic channels to aware the global public opinion about what's going on right now. So, of course, this picture of Joe Biden and President Andrzej Duda in Rzeszów, when they visited both American and Polish troops, is very symbolic. But also a picture of Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, Olaf Scholz, President with His Holiness the Pope Francis, meeting with head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. But during Biden's visit to Poland, we welcome both Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Defense of Ukraine to have the talk with Biden, with the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, right? So, because it was the moment where they can finally meet, and talk about this. Pictures from today. I was talking with Dr. Stent about it, that's a lot of things going on. So today, the presidents of Poland and Baltic states went to see Volodymyr Zelensky. I think this hug is very symbolic between Duda and Zelensky. But also, this trip of Polish, Czech, and Slovenian prime minister was heavily criticized at the beginning. But we can see that they showed the pioneer step. This is good to go to show the support, because after the visit, also other head of states went there as well. Military support. Of course, Madam Consul, I'm not allowed to say a lot of things. You probably as well about the military support. I will just let you know that we're delivering a lot of support on that particular issue. For us, the most important is Rzeszów. This is where we have airport, when we ship all the equipment needed for Ukrainians. This is the reason why from time to time, Russians also bombed military objects close to Lviv. They bombed fuel, what?
Fuel depot.
Yeah, during Biden's visit to Poland, a few minutes before he had the statement, and the royal council, right? And so this is very important. Also, like to give the equipment Ukrainians need, for their fight. But I'm allowed to say that we are also delivering Piorun. So this is what we called, Piorun, meaning Thunderbolt, right? A man-portable air defense system of Polish production, very effective, as you can see, because it allow to shoot the objects flying on a very low level, right? So this is basically what we are delivering to Ukrainians. I would like to also mention that the foreign press, like the economists, for instance, see that what we were awareing the Westerners it was not paranoia. This is basically right point of view regarding the threat from Russian Federation for the region. This is the reason I'm going to refer to another movie, Don't Look Up. Probably you remember that movie, and this particular meme went viral after a war in Ukraine, right? So to be fair, I would like to mention that this is not only valid for the Western Europe, it should be also valid for Hungary. Because, few days before the aggression, Viktor Orban and Vladimir Putin were drinking champagne, and Hungary closed the airspace to delivering weapons. So this is shipment of famous Turkish Bayraktar drones going around Hungary to Rzeszów. So you can see now that basically this additional road this particular shipment must do. The EU responds to Russian aggression in Ukraine, and I would like to be very frank with you. I was positively surprised how you responded. I remember that during previous conflicts, you always, said some statements about, their deep thoughts with the civilians, or they condemned, and this is a very strong document, right? I think Ursula von der Leyen and Josep Borrell changed. So we are right now witnessing how the EU changing from the normative power to the security power, the political power, finally. And I'm obliged by law, given the source of the very nice graphic of the European Union, there are the different layers where we, like the EU, is responding. This is finance, transport, defense, energy, technology, and trade. So, for instance, 80 people are sanctioned. Both Putin and Lavrov are not allowed to enter the European Union. A lot of assets being frozen, especially targeted towards particular oligarchs, working so close with Putin's regime. So basically, right now, EU is showing the social democratic phase of this organization, I mean, nationalizing a lot of properties or capturing yachts. And there is like a radical democratic idea of selling those properties and then those money, sent to Ukrainian military. It will be very symbolic. In terms of regional business, of course, probably will be questions about gas and oil, but a lot of other goods cannot be imported from Russia. Technology cannot be exported. There is a ban of tourism services. So basically, if you are a Russian or Belarusian and you would like to make an Airbnb reservation in Vienna, I think you wouldn't do so. It will be very problematic for you. There's, of course, different issues with Crimea, Sevastopol, Donetsk and Lugansk, but this is a different topic. There is no any gathering between the EU and Russian Federation. There is no G8 meetings anymore. Sputnik and Russia Today finally are banned. So basically, because we must remember that they are spreading so many, not only fake news regarding US, Europe, but also spreading the disinformation about war in Ukraine. And I would like to also say that Ursula von der Leyen and Borrell also showed a very important gesture by going to Ukraine. They went to Bucha. And Josep Borrell is factual Minister of Foreign Affairs of the European Union. There's like a European name for that, like High Representative and so on. But he said on his Twitter, this war will be won on the battlefield, right? And this is significant change comparing what was the natural statements from the European Union. let's bring this gentle topic. General mood on EU and like EU about Germany, on Germany and the role in the current conflict. But I wouldn't use Polish or Central European argument. I would use words of a Dutchman, of the head of the Liberal delegation in the European Parliament, Guy Verhofstadt.
And finally, a little advice to my friends in Germany. I think that after the horrors of the Second World War, there have emerged, I'm finishing, a strong and democratic Germany, a very strong and democratic Germany. But from such a Germany, I expect leadership, leading by example, and not dragging the feet, as we see it today.
I guess Bettina is applauding, so. So this is not only a Central European case. This is basically the whole Europe is looking for bigger political involvement of German Federal Republic, especially Olaf Scholz. However, I would like to also be fair that his statement in Bundestag was also historical one. You know, when he ended up with Ostpolitik, enlarged by Willy Brandt, that is, change to business to contact, didn't happen. And I think that especially German society is much more radical than the political elites. So my thesis regarding the European Union is the following: either more sanctions, complete energy independence from Russia, and not step back, or the European project will be at stake. So we must remember that the European Union is not only the political body. So this is the political representation of the European populace, of the European peoples, right? And I think that people in Europe, after seeing such horror pictures, and some of them I'm going to show you, don't want to have stronger relations with Russia, rather be independent from their national sources. So Back to the Future, part 3, and it would be the saddest one. There is a lot of historians in the room, and we are the Catholic University, so I would like to use Latin. Historia magistra vita est. Yeah, so that the history is the best teacher of life. And there's a question. Because when we see pictures from Sarajevo, 1990 to 1995, right? Bombed, heavily bombed for 3 years. I wonder if we learned the lessons from Sarajevo. Pictures from Bucha and from Katyn, the same tight hands on the back. And I would like to also say that today is the day when we commemorate and we call this in Poland genocide of the Polish officers in Katyn, Kharkov, and Miednoje. Approval rates for Putin, right? Because there's a lot of discussion about this is Putin's war, right? This is not Russian responsibility. War in Chechnya, war in Georgia, annexation of Crimea, and war in Ukraine. Right? Russians supporting action of the leader. And last example, which was shocking for me when I was preparing my talk. There is 13 miles difference between Bucha and Babi Yar. The genocide happening close to each other in the distance of many years. So why Ukraine must win? Because they are not fighting only their war for the independence. They are fighting our war for the principles of human rights, democracy, and hopefully, peaceful future, because they are fighting the moral battle. So thank you for attention. Slava Ukraini.
Okay, the floor is now open to any questions. Just identify yourself and speak, please.
Hello, I'm Percy, a student in the master's program at CERES. You mentioned a little bit about Orban, and I'm just wondering whether you have perspectives on his recent electoral win this weekend past and how that'll change the Polish-Hungary-Europe conundrum that has been sort of persistent for the last 5 years or so.
Okay, so I will quote Jarosław Kaczyński, or like paraphrase. He said that he's worried about Hungary, that they have to reestablish relations or rethink relations with Hungary. You must remember that Hungary is a very important point of reference for law and justice. in 2011, when Law and Justice lost the election, during the electoral night, Jarosław Kaczyński said, there will be a day we're going to have Budapest in Warsaw. And many bill exchange between Poland and Hungary, funny fact, in the European Parliament canteen. This is where both Law and Justice and Fidesz parliamentarians exchange the legal frameworks, proposals. But I think above everything for Jarosław Kaczyński and for all Polish political elites, except Konfederacja Party, the most important is security. So if Orban is harming Polish, Central European, and European security, he would have been an ally. Let's rephrase what Orban says. Orban is always saying that he don't want to be involved because there is a Hungarian minority living, in Zakarpattia, and he would like to protect them. But the most important is two factors. One, that he needs Russian investment and technology to reform Hungarian nuclear power plant. So this is the reason why he needs Russia on the side, because from the energy reasons. And the second of all, and I published once a paper about Viktor Orban, that he doesn't believe honestly in liberal democracy. We think that this project is over. So basically, this is also what a lot of people are saying from the Putin side. The Putin, this is like wait and see politics. And I think this is also what Orban is planning. That all of that would be over soon, and then we're going to return to the business as usual, right? So we don't want to harm our relationship with Russia. But when you see how Hungary behaved on the international arena, they are at the same time voting to reject Russia from the Human Rights Council in the United Nations. The same day, the spokesperson of the government saying that Hungary would not support back up any further sanctions on the EU level. So this is like, Orban is very pivotal, right? So he's like a good basketball player, but on the very sleepy, let's say, slippery, floor. Because sooner or later he will also be punished by European Union, not only on European funds, but that he would be a person who is serving Putin's interest. And when you serve the devil, you're condemned.
Well, let me follow up on that, because Hungary has also accepted a lot of refugees, right? So when we're looking at Europe, we're seeing sort of new fractures, right? Poland and Hungary moving apart, but also new cohesion with Sweden and Finland wanting to join NATO. I'm wondering if but some of these issues, as you say, are security related, and others have to do with Ukrainians reminding Europe and the West more generally about the values of democracy. So there's ideas, and then there's sort of security involved. But when we look at what's going on in France, it's not clear that the French public opinion cares that much about, say, Le Pen having been photographed with Putin and being a big victory for him if she wins. So my question is, looking forward, what you see, the kind of, there's all sorts of new configurations that this war is leading to. But looking at Europe, in terms of cohesions and divisions, what's going to be the impact of these large number of refugees over in the course of a long war? What are the, relations? What are the new political divisions going to be?
So first of all, of course, if Marine Le Pen would win the election, she will win. Hopefully not. If she will win the elections in Paris, there will be a huge parade in Moscow. I think that on the 9th of May, there will be waving the banner.
I think they're going to have a parade anyway.
But what is this? I'm mentioning May 9th, because this is the deadline for Putin to deliver victory for Russian people. So this is the deadline. So this is the reason why we, at least in Poland, we have this feeling that the decisive battle would happen soon. Right? This is the reason why we are delivering a lot of weapons and so on, right? Because probably generals of NATO say that it could be a little bit like Kursk time battle, right? Close around Donetsk, then the decisive moment. But answering your question, I think especially Andrzej Duda, knew that all these illiberal ideas will harm the Polish national interest to security. This is the reason why I think he would advocate to change all these fights between Warsaw and Brussels, because we also need additional funds. You must remember that, and to be frank, I'm academic, so I'm serving the truth. Right? EU also is behaving badly. EU spent absolutely much more money to authoritarian Turkey during the refugee crisis in Syria that they haven't delivered additional funds to Poland, right? And we are entering 8th week in the moment, right, of this crisis. So this is a humanitarian crisis, period, right? So I think that Hungary, of course, would try to play a role of this defender of the so-called, Christian world, fighting for the traditional values. Orban would be like a Donald Trump, or he is like a Donald Trump, right, in Europe. And he would like to reestablish a better relation with Le Pen in France, after even if she's going to lose, but look at how many French would like to vote, for such person. And they don't want to vote because they hate Ukrainians. They vote for her because they are losers of globalization. They are people who lost for the couple of years, right? But Vox Party in Spain, Northern League in Italy, right? So you would find this liberal, international, and Orban would like to be the leader of this group, because there was a lot of problems in the European Union, a social economical one, and he would like to raise those, of course, using his conservative agenda. Sweden and Finland. This is I think something that nobody expects. I remember that every single time when I was in Sweden and Finland, I was talking with my Swedish and Finnish colleagues. I was like, but especially with Finns, like, yeah, you share 1,300 kilometer border with Russia. So I said, yeah, but if we would join it, then they're going to attack us. And I think that Finns know that they can attack them no matter what. So at least let's have this confirmation of security. But I'm not sure if the whole NATO member states would like to accept it right now. I think that sooner or later, like for example, we must remember that the Dutch already stopped Ukrainian path to the European Union, right? So I'm not sure if the Spaniards, Portuguese, Maltese will say, yeah, like EU is fine, but especially Spaniards and Portuguese or French, or Dutch, yeah, but NATO, yeah, but why our soldiers would like to go there and go die? Remember, this is how the Second World War started, right? When the French and Brits were not so ready to fight for Gdańsk, right? So this is how this tragedy happened. Of course, we would, I think Poles and Baltic states would be the first, say yes, come on. But we must remember that we are then entering a totally new phase of potential conflict. But Finns and Swedes have a good army, a lot of equipment, so hopefully they will manage.
Don't forget the Winter War. So, yeah,
Thank you for a very interesting talk, Bartosz. I want to raise the issue of Germany again. We were talking a little bit about this before your talk. So yes, on the one hand, it was amazing on February the 27th when Chancellor Scholz jettisoned 50 years of Ostpolitik and made all the right noises. Germany's going to spend more on defense. It's going to send lethal weapons to Ukraine. It's and thinking about its energy needs. And yet since then, there's been somewhat sort of an attrition in that, right? The weapons haven't actually gone, as in my understanding, to Ukraine. Germany does not want to stop its imports of Russian hydrocarbons, and it's obviously one of the most important European importers of Russian gas and oil. And, German public opinion, I think, is somewhat divided. We saw today, we were just talking about that, that President Steinmeier wanted to visit with these other leaders, and Zelensky basically vetoed that. Whether that was a good idea or not is something different. What do you think it would take for Germany to get more fully on board with a number of other, European Union countries in terms of what it's willing to do for Ukraine and what it's willing to sacrifice in terms of the energy?
Great question. So first of all, regarding weapons, Germany delivered a lot. No, such amount of weapons they had in their storage, and they don't have a lot of military supplies. So this is the reason why Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the European Commission, previously the Minister of Defense, is so praised by the Polish right. We loved her because she made the German army so weak. There was even the analysis that this is probably the first time since 1933 if we could beat the German army, if the conflict would happen. I think that the German political elites are the hostages of the past. The majority of people, especially from the Green Party, politically socialized as an opponent of nuclear power plants in NATO. They are declared pacifists. So we must remember that Scholz, when he announced the increase of military spending, there was already a question: what is the reason we didn't have funds for nurturing and healthcare during COVID? And right now, just like that, we have no additional billions of euros. I think what European countries can do, what Poland can do, is using the moral argument. They see to, like I said, like this is your moral obligation. Because honestly, I was always shocked with the German statement from the beginning. First statement was the following: you're going to lose this war in 2 days. Never happened. We cannot deliver weapons because we have the moral obligations to Russia. And then we are not going to deliver you weapons because it will be more victims. And then we don't have weapons. But basically Germany behaving so badly, they are losing all the image of serious, well-organized country. But they have the moral obligation. And this is, I showed you Verhofstadt, right? To show you that this is also what the Westerners are saying. I think that I agree with you that Zelensky must have Germany on board. But there's so many pictures of Steinmeier and Wawrow, hugging each other. Yes. So it will be complicated also for like a war in the internet, like for the propagandistic reasons. But second of all, I think that Zelensky is looking for Scholz visit to Kiev. But he is the chancellor, he is the factual leader of the state. But I think that everybody accept that if there will be a ceasefire, if, for example, Russia would capture this land corridor, so basically we'll win in Mariupol, then of course Russia would say, okay, so this is the ceasefire, this is our solution, and then Germany would be first to say yes. They would force Ukrainians to accept it, and Ukrainians cannot do that. Now, because if they're going to accept that, then in 5 years there will be another war. Will they claim for Odessa? And I think this is a problem for German political elites. This is not easy to admit that for the last 30 years you made a mistake. This is not easy for a human being. I understand. This is the reason I am so furious that Angela Merkel haven't commented anything. She should, she must. She's the child, she was chancellor for 17 years of Germany. 16. And then she must also said that we made particular mistakes. And as a former chancellor, I fully encourage my successor, Olaf Scholz, to change policy. We're waiting for this interview. I'm convinced that she will deliver it. She wouldn't accept this pressure. Germans as a society is too smart.
Yes, please.
My name is Joyce Mushaven. I'm a professor in the BMW Center, and Angela knows it's part of my job description to defend Angela Merkel. First of all, let me express my deep appreciation and admiration of your PowerPoint skills. It was awesome. I'm going to have to contact my son and ask for some nachhilfe. But I do think one thing that was definitely missing in your Back to the Future 3 were photos from Aleppo and Homs, and photos of the treatment of Syrian refugees at the Polish border, whether they were coming from Belarus, etc. And so that sort of brings me back to Germany, which is being accused of acting only in self-interest. First of all, I got to do some fact checking there, or correct some of the things that were said. But more importantly, Germany opened 14,000 refugee centers, volunteer centers, just 14,000 volunteer centers on September 3rd, 2015, when Poland and Hungary were refusing to accept any of those refugees. I think what's underestimated, or one could say misunderestimated, to borrow a Bushism in this context, is that Germany is going through phenomenal generational change. Angela Merkel was the last chancellor to have been shaped by Ostpolitik, and Willy Brandt's comment, the future, the key lies in Moscow. Actually, it was Egon Bahr's comment. All right. So they were the generation that learned you had to do anything you could to keep Putin in dialogue. And Putin, by the way, is involved in Syria as well. So Poles could have responded to that. Sorry for those kinds of stereotypical things. Secondly, Olaf Scholz was the one who blocked increases in defense spending. Defense spending increased under Angela Merkel, and von der Leyen wanted to raise it even more, but as finance minister, Olaf Scholz resisted. Thirdly, Baerbock wasn't even born when Ostpolitik was conducted. And so you see a new generation of leaders who have come to accept a new responsibility. This kind of change in strategic culture in Germany has been going on since the white paper of 2016, which actually came into being under Ursula von der Leyen. So Germany's really going through some changes here. And so we can't expect everything von heute auf morgen. But the other question is, why is Germany so self-interested, but Poland's response to Ukrainian refugees, as opposed to Syrian refugees, is not self-interest?
I'm not state representative, so I'm very happy to answer your question. I would condemn the reaction of the Polish border guard with the pushbacks. I don't have any problem to say this was absolutely scandalous reaction of my state to push back people in need. I would say that especially my home country need to show solidarity to everybody who is in need, and even those who are not white Christians. I think this was the issue. That Ukrainians looks like us. So this is like a mirroring of behavior of majority of the people. I have a lot of friends who've been on the border, helping, as a doctors, as an activist, to people who've been trapped by regime of Aleksander Lukashenko. I would like to also say that Lukashenko basically used them, as a weapon for the war with the West. I think Poland shouldn't compete with Lukashenko on the field of authoritarianism. I think we should be better in that, especially that regarding Islam, because we must remember the majority of people who've been captured between Polish and Belarusian border are Muslims. Persians helped Poles to escape from Soviet Union with Anderson. So yeah, Muslims help us. We must also help them. I don't have a problem with that. Regarding Germany and Baerbock, yeah, I know that she's enormously young politician for the German conditions, but she was enormously naive. Now, when she was saying that, and I quote that Putin lied to her. So I'm surprised the KGB officer lied to her. So I would be deeply shocked. How dare you, Mr. Putin?
Well, Merkel wouldn't have been
Yeah,
shocked, 'cause she's
okay,
known
yeah,
as
but-
KGB.
Yeah, but she's Aussie, and she should know, that this is what John McCain said, right? So what I see in the Putin's eyes, KGB. McCain was right on that. Okay, but listen, I don't want to blame Germany for all the mistakes, but I would like to say that they should admit that they were treating Russia as a normal business partner, and it ended up they were making economic deals with the people responsible for genocide. And if they wouldn't admit it, they will lose politically. They will lose every single week. And I'm keeping finger crossed for my social democratic colleagues. I'm keeping finger crossed also for the Christian Democrats, even for Die Linke. They are no, Die Linke published on the day one. They published the critical graphic on the Facebook. I don't keep finger crossed for alternative for Deutschland. I don't keep hope. I lost hope. I even don't have hope regarding it. As I don't have hope, you know, for Confederacja Party. But I'm also keeping fingers crossed for the German society. Make those demonstrations. Make them do it. Change the policy. Show the support. Right? Because it's also the German moral obligation to the world. Right? And I think they will succeed. I'm a believer. I think that first Ukraine will win this war. Second, that Russia will be punished, and the third, that there will be a significant change in Germany. And the announcement of having LNG gas ports is something good, something outstanding. But for that, we need American support. Americans reestablished air bridge, right, to Berlin during the Berlin blockade. So Americans should reestablish right now the LNG bridge with Europe, because we must remember that before Putin would press any other buttons, he would basically stop the gas flow, and for that we need American support. So I hope the Biden administration would prepare action soon to sending those ships with gas to Europe. Thanks God, this is already end of winter, so we can manage, right? But we were underlining all the time that Nord Stream 2 would harm not the Polish national interests, it will harm Ukraine. But nobody would like to have us, right? Because they called us, you know, Russophobic. We were right, they were wrong, and they have to admit it.
That's true. Yes.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm a first year master student in the CERES program. So I was curious, Poland and Ukraine have obviously not always had the most peaceful history in the 20th century together regarding the status of the law and the legacy of Bandera and the Ukrainian People's Army. So my question to you is there any sort of resentment or hostility from any segments of Polish society or government towards Ukraine because of this, or is it a entirely closed issue at this point?
Thank you so much for this question. I know that sooner or later it would happen. Well, we mustn't close our talks about Bowie. We are not allowed. We cannot do it because of the tradition of the Polish families there. We would like to find out the mass graves, commemorate them, and then probably we can solve it. There is nobody in Poland who said that, no, right now we should close this chapter. No. I know many people who lost family relatives there. But we don't want to talk about it right now. You know, there's like timing in politics is important. This is not the time. We will return to it. But look at how often this politics of memory is used by Putin's regime. Not only it was used in 2014 by Rydliński, who proposed basically the partition of Ukraine, right? He said officially it is the Polish side. I think that time Rocław Sikorski was the Speaker of the House. I think he was in that. Second of all, Wawrow already said that, yeah, that Poland would like to be involved in Western Ukraine because they would like to take Ivano-Frankivsk, Łódzk, and Lviv Oblast. It's not true. Of course, we would always find Western Ukraine and Western Belarus a huge part of Lithuania, which is very important for our heritage. But we don't have any issues that they belong to the other country. Wrocław is important, Breslau is important for German heritage, for many German Jews as well. And then La Salle, the founding father of social democracy, is buried there, right? And we welcome German colleagues, you know, to visit important sites for the history. But those historical arguments would be used and they are already used by the radical forces, especially the radical right. When you see how those trolls behaving on Twitter, the same people who've been against vaccination, right now are posting that, Wołyń, we remember. Yeah, but we must remember about Wołyń and also remember that those people are in need. And I would be very frank with you, this is my subjective, this is not, that I made the research, but it's my subjective understanding what is the reason why we are helping so much, so heavily to Ukraine. Because we are afraid it would happen to us. And then our daughters, wives, grandmas, our children would need such help in Germany, Netherlands, and France. I would be very frank with you, on the 24th of February, when I woke up, I had this impression that there will be a day I'm going to die on the front, and I would go and die. I would protect my father until the very last moment. I wouldn't escape Poland. If I wouldn't be in the US, I would stay. Then I would be like, that's Jan Paderewski, I would make a fundraising for the Polish military, right? But if I would be in Poland, I would fight. And then my first thought was like, okay, my brother is going to have a child in a month, right? So for his daughter, then the US must help. And we will stay. This is the reason why I admire so much Ukrainian society and Ukrainian army. They are showing by their bravery what means to fight for the fatherland. And I think that this is what a little bit reshaping. Like we had this discussion in Europe, what the fatherland means. This is what fatherland means, right? Belonging to your country, love to your fatherland. And if some of the Russian propagandists would see a recording from this talk, I have a very special address to you. The moment you will cross the Polish border, you will end up in the ground, and we wouldn't take prisoners. You can be assured of that.
We have a few minutes left too.
Thank you so much for your talk today. It was very nice to listen to a like-minded person. And I'm from Georgia. Let me underline, we are not Russophobic as many people think that we are. I just feel like Russia has to be, as a country, has to take responsibility for what they did, not only to Ukrainians, but to the former Soviet region as a whole. So I hope one day that will happen. But as for now, I actually have a question in that regard. So I have many friends who are German, and I remember when we went to Poland together, one thing that they did, they basically forced me to go with them and see Auschwitz. And they told me, it was very interesting, they told me, we are doing that, and they were my age, so they by no means have ever done anything wrong in terms of, what happened in the Second World War. They told me that we have a responsibility, we have to remember what our ancestors did to the Jewish people, we have to remember the genocide so that we do not allow the same thing, us to repeat the same thing in the future. So I feel like they have this huge responsibility that such kind of massacres and such kind of genocide should not be repeated. And they still, like, even they have this feeling of repentance. So do you think that Russians by, I don't know, 2050, 2060 in the future, if they will also realize what like Putin was doing, what type of terrible atrocities they have committed towards our region, will they be able to self-reflect, and will they have this, I don't know, ability to criticize themselves? Because even for the Soviet Union, they have not, I don't feel like they have criticized their leadership for all the atrocities they have done during the Soviet Union. So that's my question. Purely theoretical, but what do you think about that?
No, so I like the political fiction. So. It's a very hard question to answer, but I will try. We must remember that the Third Reich was a lost war. And there was so without any conditions, right? They signed all what the allies proposed to them. I'm also very brave that the Polish flag, was put on the Siegessäule in Berlin and at the Burial Gate. There was a historical, symbolism of winning the war, even politically losing. I think that if Russians would like to experience the same what the German experience, they must lose war. They wouldn't lose such heavily as Germans lost, because they have the nuclear weapons. So there was a process of denazification in Germany. So I seriously doubt that the same process of deputinization would happen, but also de-imperialization, because I think this is very deeply in the root of Russia, hating for the last 400 years. But I would like to also underline that that even during Third Reich there was an opposition. The first concentration camp were dedicated to Germans themselves, right? Communists, social democrats, regimes, right? So they were the first prisoners of the Third Reich. But Germany had Brecht and Brandt, right? People who, of course, escaped, but then they've been opposed to Adolf Hitler. I'm afraid that those people who've been against Putin they're not so many, and a lot of them been killed. Politkovska, Nemtsov. I keep thinking across there will be this resistance among Russians. So they will also have this, inspiration for future. That there must be a different Russia. But I seriously doubt that it will happen soon. And of course, there will be this danger that the West would like to export, this enlightened, political elites. I don't think that it would work. It must be their own decision to change Russia, to change Russian Federation and the role in the global arena. And I'm afraid that the future close relation between Russia and China would only make this difficult. That's when you are going hand by hand with even more authoritarian regime. So I don't know if the discussion about democratic approach will be visible. However, as I said, I'm a dreamer. I believe that there will be a day that we would go along with Russians, but I don't accept it is going to happen soon. But first of all, they have to stop killing people, bombing hospitals, and committing war crimes. So every single time when I see those flags with the Z flag, supporting and so on, I'm wondering what happened to you. Like that you are not from the same civilization. So I'm going to.
That's something.